City Council work session. On the roll call, our council member Brad Hemphill is excused. So we'll go ahead and move on to item number 3, our work session. It's a budget work session to review our enterprise revenues and proposed balanced budgets.
Mayor and council, thank you for coming tonight. This is it seems like a short presentation, but there's a lot of information in each one of these slides. So as we go through, just make sure you stop me and question anything. There's just a lot going on. So you got to make sure you understand all this. This is, again, half of the operation of the city is our utility funds and revenue funds that we have for sanitation and landfill. So the purpose of this meeting tonight is to look at the overview of the enterprise funds revenues for the very first time. You'll see how much the revenues compared to where the actual expenditures end up. And then look at the rate study and what the rate study looked at when it put together a model based on what citizens had used in the past, what citizens would possibly use in the future, and then look at those estimates compared to what we think we can do. And then all of these accounts, when you come to enterprise funds, it's a little bit different than governmental funds. They're in balance even if they're using unrestricted fund balance. The point that they become not in balance would be if you're using restricted fund balance. So there is one case where we'll show you we're really close to that, but for the most part, these are truly in balance. The rate study either called for the use of fund balance as part of the balancing of it, with the idea over the next 5 years, the rates would pick back up and cover the increasing cost. But yeah, with that in mind, so first thing I wanted to show you is my calculation based on the 2025 audited financials of what restricted fund balance is and what CIP looks like. So again, the number from the very top, the $4.9 million in landfill, that line is the unassigned fund balance as of the 2025 audited financials. So this is what our auditors and we have agreed on is the actual balance as of June of last year. So it's a year off. It doesn't have current up to date. It's as of June of last year. And as you can see, the CIP number for fiscal year 27, about halfway down the page, $1,055,000 for landfill. That number is how much the CIP is using of that unrestricted fund balance. And that's how the CIP is funded. For all of our CIP is using unrestricted fund balance. So as you can see, that number is much lower than the $4 million that we have. $4,078,000 is the unrestricted fund balance in landfill, but we are only using $1,055,000 for CIP. So where does that unrestricted fund balance go? Sometimes it goes into balancing the rates over the next 5 years. So you're gonna see one-time money being used for ongoing operations, but only temporarily, right? And then over the next 5 years, you hopefully get out of that. And that's the thing about enterprise funds. You only have to show profitability 2 years out of 5. So you could be unprofitable, you could be in the net hole, you can be negative, but eventually you have to be positive, or eventually it just becomes a general fund allocation to cover them. So with all that in mind, you have excess unrestricted fund balance. These are monies that we've collected in the past from our customers, either with the intent to fund CIP or the intent to do something in the utility that we hadn't done before. All right. So let's start with sanitation. This is probably our most complicated one. This is what the rate study put out back in October of 2025, really starting in June of 2025. The rate study put together these numbers based on what they thought citizens would use of sanitation going forward and for the next 5 years, and what rates we could assign to those. Their information on expenses, $1.5 million was their annual expense. As you can see, when we get to our actual annual expenses, a little bit different. And then their required minimum fund balance is $644,000 as of 2026, $764,000 as of 2027. The things that we knew were going to cause problems between the rate study, because the rate study happened in October, we didn't have any market data. When we talked about the market analysis that we just approved last meeting, or last 2 weeks ago, the meeting was the market rate adjustment. We didn't have any of those numbers. We didn't do a market rate adjustment calculation for the rate study. If basically that we'd be doing a whole market analysis before we did the rate study, which would mean that we already had the information coming into the rate study. We didn't do it until January. So they had no idea how much the market was going to affect each one of these utilities. They didn't put that anywhere in the 5-year plan. So when we approve a market increase, that's completely outside the plan. So that hurts the plan a little bit, but that's not to say that the rates could cover that over the next 5 years. It's just going to be a temporary hit because it happens in the first year. And then for sanitation, they don't have a CIP, as you can see. They don't plan any massive projects. I think the only CIP they've ever had when I've been here is building enclosures in the downtown area. So they have small CIPs. Their biggest thing is vehicle purchases. And that's what we figured out during the rate study is the wear and tear on those vehicles and their longevity is very, very, very small and minimal. Like we needed to increase the vehicle replacement rate so that we replace those every 7 years. And we see that. We have constant garbage trucks in the shop getting repaired, massive repairs that we're doing at year 5, 6, and 7 on these vehicles. So even a 7-year useful life on these vehicles is still stretching it, given that they drive 25 miles an hour through city streets every day of the week, except for Sunday and Saturday and Sunday. So those are things that we already contemplated in the rate study. So, but minimal fund balance. We didn't start this fund until like the 20 teen years. I don't know exactly when it started. Councilmember Flores can maybe give us some insight on that, but when we started this, it had no fund balance. So it's been building fund balance only since like 2016 or sometime. So minimally, it wasn't able to collect a lot. All right, moving on.
Right, really quick, the non-rate revenue of 450,000, was that fund balance that we had planned to use for our fleet, or?
So they were putting in a calculation for interest, but again, with with
Oh,
minimal
okay.
fund balance, there is no interest on
Okay.
investments. So
Yeah.
I saw
okay.
that too, and I'm like, that doesn't really exist. So that might have
Okay.
been just a mistake, but it was a 2026 mistake. So I guess a beginning balance mistake, but it's
Okay.
not in 2027, as you can see, that there is no balance to actually earn interest off of.
Okay.
So any other questions on that? So here's what we actually have in the budget for this year. You can see 24, 20, or 25, 26, and then our 2027 budget. So as you go over to the yellow column, fiscal year 2027 manager's budget, we're at $2,068,000. Compare that to the last slide where it said we're supposed to be at $1,055,000. So we're $500,000 higher than what the rate study projected. That being said, down in the lower left-hand corner is what we see as our current monthly collections from sanitation. And sanitation is kind of an easy fund to project because once you have a garbage can, you have it for the whole year, right? Customers don't come and go for the most part. There's a few move-ins, few move-outs, but somebody moves in and covers the garbage can. For the most part, whatever garbage cans we have on July, we have in June. So as you can see, the rate study increase happened in November, December, and that's where it went from $113,000 in total charges to $128,000 in charges. So that first increased about $13,000 to $15,000. So we know that the rate increase is definitely doing something in the rate of $13,000 to $15,000 a month. So if I projected that out, since this is the only fund I'm going to be able to do that on because it gets more complicated than this, I would think we're at $1,523,000. So the rate study said we're only supposed to be at $1,488,000. So I boosted it up $34,000 based on my projection, and then the manager's adjustment is based off additional use of reserves. So we believe that another rate study, if you did it on July 1st, that would be 12 months of that additional $13,000 to $15,000. That would increase the rate to another $155,000. So I think in my best projection is $1.67 million, but that's still well short of $2,068,000. So we're $389,000 short of having revenues and expenses equal each other. So one of the things that could be happening to this is the rate increase didn't start until later in the year, so we didn't get a full year's worth of data to get that information. But this one, we would intend our second rate increase would happen in July. We want it to happen as soon as possible so that we get a full year's of the effect. We do have unrestricted fund balance, as I said, with no CIP in the future for this fund of $325,000. So of the $389,000, we can cover $325,000 of it. I looked back at prior years, budget versus actual for 24 or 25 and 24. They typically have about $50,000 in savings from either salary savings or expenditure savings in this account. So I think for the most part, you could say we're in balance right now. The way it is, this fund is barely in balance, but we're in balance on this fund. What we might want to start thinking about is things that cause this fund to be at $2 million, $2,068,000, is bulk pickup. It's one of the things we talked about during the rate study that we wanted to keep that in there. It's a cost that continues to drive this account. The rate increase did increase that $1. I think it went from 12 to 13. So we are increasing the cost of it, but you might want to start think about, do we want to continue bulk for the next 5 years? Free dumps at the landfill, that gets paid for out of this account. So everyone that has a sanitation account, if we continue that, that's also causing rate pressure. We also pick up twice a week, as compared to some places in Pima only pick up once a week. I think Thatcher is still twice a week. So that would be a little bit outside of the norm to go to once a week. but having to pick up at every house twice a week is an additional cost to us. But these are things that we can do on the expenditure side to reduce our costs so that we're not having to increase the rate further. If not, we might need to be more aggressive on our rates. Even the 5-year projected rate study probably is not aggressive enough to meet the needs of this fund. But for the first year, 2027, we can definitely get through it. So this is the most complicated one. Any comments, suggestions?
I have a comment about the rate increase starting in July. I would not be in favor of making a rate increase in July. I know that we posted and approved that rate, the rate plan that we did in October of 2025.
Yep.
Rate increases went into effect in November, but I would still want to give our customers a 60-day notice if we decide that we're going to increase that. So that would put us out until, maybe when the budget's
the
approved
earliest
and you do
if I
60. So
Did
you're
it in June, so maybe August, July, September
so
22nd?
around September, October. Another thing I will say is I know I'm kind of maybe talking in your future slides, but you talk about other increases in the other rates, and some of them are in October.
Correct.
I would not be in favor of doing rate increases for different enterprise funds at different times. I think we just need to decide what does that rate increase need to be, doing all of them at the same time, noticing them for 60 days, giving the customers that time to prepare and be noticed for those.
I think October is a good time frame because you'll find that its biggest time is in the summer. Gas and electric for the most part, the biggest time is in the summer. Gas is in the winter. So that October lull is where a good time where you come in and out of that. So yes,
I
I'm only
even-
projecting because of July, because of the funds that are
Right.
struggling the most, trying to get as much revenue into these accounts as soon as possible.
Mhm.
But yeah, we can definitely push it back to 60 days notice on those and push it to October. But
We already increased the rates in November. I even wouldn't be in favor of doing it until November, making it at least 12 months that we've captured those new rates and before we tried to do. But
okay, so
my opinion.
great suggestion. I can take it, but that doesn't help me on this fund that's really tight. So any suggestions on how we make this fund a little bit less tight? Meaning that revenues and expenditures need to come closer together.
Is it this tight because, again, with the vehicle purchases? I mean, you sent us something that you were looking at pushing them out further, wasn't quite recommended, but again, it was a recommendation.
So we didn't recommend it that we do anything to sanitation because we're already seeing failures at 7 years. So we could push that, but that would be totally in not agreement with what we know already. We could push out vehicle replacement. So yes, there is that option of pushing it out to 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, but we're not seeing the life of the vehicle go past 7.
With the other sanitation collection in town, they would be more than happy, they said, to take our 7-year trucks. So I'm wondering if we couldn't push it out, just doing better preventive maintenance.
I mean, definitely an option of bringing revenues and expenses together. So any other suggestions?
I do know that also going to Dusty's point about the vehicle and equipment replacement, I know that we've changed to now financing smaller vehicles and then cash funding the large equipment. This fund, I think because of where it's at, could we do a debt service on it and pay in payments rather than
So
trying to cash fund? I don't know, would there be much of a difference? Maybe slight.
the 7-year replacement, you're still replacing one every year. There might be a slight. But we're off like $50,000 right now from each other. So
Right.
any suggestion is a good suggestion. So
And since we're talking about fleet, I'm going to bring this up too, because, our policy when we replace a vehicle is, when they go to replace it, they're going to replace it and auction off the old vehicle. Or their second choice is they're going to decide that that vehicle still works for them. They're going to keep it, and they're no longer going to need to pay the high rate of for replacement cost. We could reduce that. There's probably still needs to be a little bit because they don't buy a vehicle for another or equipment for 2 years or whatever it is. We got to cover that cost because it's going to inflate, right? But that would definitely reduce that expense. And then the third option is that vehicle doesn't work for that department specifically, but is still in good condition, could work for another department, in which case that department would not be charged a replacement cost because they can be charged the maintenance costs on it, but council is not saying that we're adding more fleet to our, our entire, or adding another vehicle to our fleet. So those are really the three options, and I'm wondering if the budget is reflecting all of that, because the example I've used in emails and other communication is the example for finance, where that was a vehicle that was not on the vehicle replacement plan, but now is, and so now is having that expense charged to it. I know over 1 year, it might not seem like a lot of money, but over time, it could be a significant amount that could make a difference. So I want to make sure, are these our procedures? Is it being reflected in the budget? If it's not, can we make those adjustments? And is that going to help the budget to be more
So yeah,
in
as of
line?
right now, those are not in the budget, but we can propose those and I can try to calculate how much that would be a difference, but I don't think on the sanitation fund that's helping us, but on the governmental fund where our ghost fleet has grown and vehicles have happened like that, that could be something, but
Okay.
not a major, but definitely a change. So we can calculate
Okay.
that and we'll talk about that as we go through the tentative budget. We can propose those as we go in through the month of June and see if we can get a 7-all vote on that and figure out if we can approve that in the budget. But right now, it is a balanced budget in the general fund, so you don't need to do that, but if you want to do that, we can calculate that. That's where I'm gonna give you the month of June to propose some of those things, and we'll have votes on them and put them in the budget or not put them in the budget. Those kind of ideas, right?
And we have free dump day twice a year,
3 times.
3 times a year. I don't know if we couldn't reduce one of them.
There's a suggestion that brings expenses down. Anyone on bulk pickup willing to maybe increase the size or decrease the size? You can only do a 90-gallon containers worth of trash instead of 4 cubic yards, which no one knows what that is when they try to figure it out. I mean, any suggestion on those, or would you guys be willing to talk about that? We don't need to do it this year. That's the thing is this year I'm giving you a somewhat balanced budget, but for 2028, you're going to have to make these hard decisions.
Well, I myself would rather give up one free dump day than give up
Then increase rates.
side for our residents.
Correct. So you'd have to give up 3 of them to make it 50.
Oh, that's not bringing in
These aren't
that
big
much.
things. I mean, it's like an aircraft carrier. These are slow adjustments. You don't turn on a dime. You just slowly adjust over time.
Already tried to get that free dump out of the hot part of the year. It'd be easy to do one in the spring and one in the fall.
So definitely, should we push for that in the 2027 budget to cut back on the number of, just to say that we're trying to balance this budget?
Yes.
So one free dump is, we'll put that in the suggestions. Okay, anything else? Bulk pickup? No, we still want bulk pickup the way it is. Less often pickups, the most controversial of all the decisions.
Is there anybody who can tell us how much that gets used? Because I don't see it.
Bulk pickup,
Yeah,
there's your man.
but I think we have people on standby whether it gets used or not. or
We have
how's that work?
we have a lot of repeat offenders that use it a lot. And the guys are busy all the time with bulk and that. So, but it's mostly repeat people. And if it's under that 4 cubic yards, it's basically free.
I've used it once and it was just in the last month or two and I noticed my neighbors got picked up like 5 times before mine got picked up. And I called it in and they just put it out nonstop. And so I wondered how that plays out.
It gets used a lot. They're busy nonstop with bulk pickup when they're not running the trucks. That's one thing that we didn't even talk about, but the extra can, charging $10 for an extra can is pretty, I mean, you're basically doubling your trash for $10. That's,
We have to advertise that.
I know, but that's another thing.
suggestion.
Well, I know I was a proponent of the bulk pickup just because it keeps town cleaner, but I don't know who uses it. I mean, obviously somebody is, but it sounds like they're overusing it and most
There's a
people
lot
are
that
not
overuse
using it.
But it is a good feature to have. A lot of times in the springtime, people are putting bags of leaves out. I mean, a lot of people use it once or twice a year, but we do have a lot of repeat offenders that use it a lot. A lot of people that own rental properties and they throw all the furniture out there when they change renters, and that's what gets us That's what costs us the most, taking it to landfill, is these big items that
Maybe there is a way to cut down on that and get it, I mean, if you gotta have the guys and the trucks out there anyway, I don't know that it
it doesn't
accomplishes
affect-
anything to
Plus the
say
tonnage
no.
runs
but-
through our
yeah,
tonnage.
it doesn't affect personnel, it's the tonnage that is what
So if we
costs.
can reduce tonnage, so maybe a 90-gallon free bulk pickup limit and 2 dumps a year, maybe that's a suggestion for the 2027 budget?
Is there a way for your guys to track these offenders? Because they pick up, so they know which ones are abusing it.
You know how,
We have
Are
a
they
list.
getting letters and things? Because, I mean, we can't
There
be
is
that
no limit.
parent
There's
that
no limit in the
threatens.
policy right now, so you can
Yeah,
do it
there-
every day if you want.
Maybe we
But
need
if-
it, maybe.
We need a limit then.
We need to correct
I
that.
think in
Yeah.
in our rate it's actually once per month.
But Rich will
So-
pick it up.
But if the
Rich
guys
will
put
pick
it
up
out
anyway.
there, we're gonna get a phone call that it's out there and we can pick it up, so maybe that's what we
Well,
need.
is there a way to, somebody who does it more than once a month gets billed for it?
Well, maybe that's what we need to do, is if it's more than that once a month, then we just charge the rate.
I mean, if once a month is what we've told them and they do more than that, I think it should cost.
Yeah.
So in the we'll pass the 2027 budget, but maybe during 2027, we talk about changing the rules associated with bulk pickup.
Yes.
But we're gonna reduce the number of free dumps down to 2.
I,
Sounds like I have enough votes for that.
I,
Well, another thing I think we should look at is the people that leave their garbage cans on the curb, I mean, on the street.
All
or
week
the
long.
curb, all the time. They're probably not full. And then so the trucks are all, they stop every time too. I know it's just my wife and I. We put our garbage out sometimes once a week. Sometimes I can go 2 weeks and but it's just the two of us. So but if I wanted it nice and empty all the time, I'd take it out. But we don't have to.
That's another thing, education for the public would
Yes.
be nice, because people feel like if they get twice a week pickup, they gotta put their can out there.
Yeah.
And half the time, these guys are dumping a can on Thursdays or Fridays, and there's one bag in it.
And if
Um,
you put it out, bring it in so that the trucks don't have to stop by every time for just one garbage bag.
So more of an education campaign in
I
2027
think so.
to try to consider dumping and how much we use of the dump. These are all good ideas that help us get closer. But just know, if we're still $2 million and only bringing in $1.6 million, we don't have $325,000 next year. So there might be more aggressive fee increases might also be on the table with all of this.
How much is the free monthly dump for the Safford residents?
12,000.
About a month, every month, what are we paying? 12,000?
I can look into that for you.
12,000 is free dump, or is it community pride?
The free dump, I know, is around 12 or 13,000 every time we do it. I don't know what the monthly, I can't imagine the monthly free dump being that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's only less than 200 customers that actually use or take advantage of that.
Okay.
So it's not very much.
So that's not going to save us
Yeah,
a ton if
$25,
we,
300, and that's 300 customers throughout the year. I mean, maybe 20,000
Okay.
bucks if we're lucky.
Could we increase the price from the $10 for the second can?
So as he brings back those ideas in 2027, we'd have to do a rate intent to increase, and then we would go through the 60 days and then vote on that. So, yeah, we did. So if it's time for him to increase that, that would definitely help us, that $325,000 shortfall. So all these things that we need to think about.
What would the rates look like?
$325,000.
What would the rates look like if trash went up $1 a month?
If so, we're going up $1 and that increased at $155,000. So to really be where we need to, we
Got
need
a
to be at
third of it.
$2. So instead of going up $1, I really need to go up 3 this year, but we can do that next year and go up 3 instead of 1.
How much
At
does
some
it,
point, we're gonna have to do $2 extra dollars in
how
there to get
much
caught up.
does it help increasing that $10 up to like 25? Do we have that many second cans out there?
Quite a few out there, but it wouldn't help
wouldn't be.
that much.
And they'll just drop
The real
their
money
second
is in
can.
the residential charge. So that's where your biggest bulk of money comes in. As you can see down, residential is $75,000, $80,000, and you only get $47,000 from your commercial. So it's really in the residential. So we're really facing a $2 increase in the next near future, not this year, but in the near future. That's above what the rate study already was projecting, which I think was $1 every year for the next 5. So
do we need to look at increasing the commercial charge? Because it seems like they're not paying that much and residential's carrying the load.
Remember with commercial, we did fix a lot of it to get closer to Vista, but you don't have to go with us unless you're in the downtown. So you could cause customers to leave us if we get too uncompetitive. So I think we've got to a point where we're competitive with Vista and we're still lower than them. I think anything else is pushing the limit of them weighing their options and going with a different vendor.
Well, It's
What we
costing-
also could do is lower the landfill, the $25 dump fee that we charge ourselves, we could lower that to 20. That would affect our landfill revenue. I'd bring even less in there, and we haven't got to that one yet. So these are all ideas, but we have a balanced sanitation budget. Just know there's $325,000 looming over our heads.
If commercial is costing us more to do than we're bringing in, let's just let Vista do it.
I think with the rate study really opened our eyes about what commercial needed to be. I think we've fixed a lot of that, Councilmember Ogoy. So I think we're better. We were really far off in some of the canisters. We are encouraging customers to get lots of weekly pickups to reduce their number of pickups and increase their can size. But there is certain limits that places can't fit a 6-yard dumpster. So we're kind of stuck given our limitations of the city. But I think we're more competitive on commercial, but an idea could be just abandoning commercial. Yeah, we went up about 10 grand when we increased commercial, so. But we could abandon commercial, but it may be still dragging on the rate, on the residential rate, and just be like Thatcher and just do no commercial. And just turn it all over to Vista.
Do away with commercial,
Then
do
you cut away with trucks.
You got 2 front-load trucks, rear-load trucks.
This is specialty
We'll have to
equipment.
keep the rear-load trucks, that's where we do a lot of our bulk, but 2 front-load trucks, you do away with commercial. You wanna wait completely.
But these are ideas to weigh for a year. I don't need to make those today. We're good. Or do you want to make them sooner?
A year's gonna come fast.
It will come fast. But yeah, sanitation is suffering a little, so.
I don't want to
Skip line.
decide now, but I don't want to let it sit and not talk about it.
So, but the ideas that I'm coming back with, so we're gonna pass a rate study based on a balanced budget right now that we have, and we're gonna reduce the number of free dumps down to 2. We're going to increase, what was my other thing I was gonna do? Did someone write it down? Was I standing up here? Reduce the number of free dumps down to 2. We were gonna do bulk pickup regulations. And then, yeah, outside of that,
Try to educate the customer.
and try to educate the customer.
And you're gonna move the increase not to July.
Oh, yeah, but that hurts us. That makes it even worse. Now you're adding to the problem. So that is, we can talk about that. But again, that's why I would like to start in July, so that at least we're getting something in as soon as possible to try to mitigate that $325,000 loss. All right, so sanitation, we feel good. We haven't solved the world's problems, but we got through a year. Okay, so landfill. So this is the rate study. Landfill is very complicated. You're gonna see I'll show you a graph of what tonnages look like by month for the last 5 years. They're all over the place. So our rate study, I think, really opened our eyes on what the landfill looks like, how much capacity we have. So we learned a lot during the rate study, but again, I think we're still struggling here. When we adjusted the rates, the $25 rate for the city of Safford really cut down on landfill's revenues. So I don't know if we really replaced the rate increases on everybody else that really made up for that. So just know that our landfill comparison, we started late in the year, we were supposed to start in July, so we lost 4 months worth of data. The market rate adjustments that we did for the employees this year was not contemplated in the rate, but I don't think it was very substantial. I mean, it wasn't really worth walking, but it did happen. It did not get brought into the rate study. Capital expenses we did add because we are looking to go to the second expansion. This landfill will be done in 2047, so we need to start planning and preparing for the second wave of the landfill. So we have increased our capital expenses, but it's because of that. We are trying to get better prepared for the future, and that was not contemplated in the rate study. If we stop doing that, we would be a little bit behind, but we have 15 years to catch up. But we think it's the best time right now to get the land while it's cheap from BLM, so we want to start contemplating that. It's $106,000, but again, on a fund that only brings in $2 million, that's 10% that we added to the fund that didn't get contemplated in the rate study. And then the fund balance on this one was pretty minimal, as you can see from the very beginning slide. I had $4 million. Some of that is supposed to be set aside for post-closure. So whatever excess fund balance we have really goes to CIP in this fund. So looking at, this is what we're proposing for this year. 2,068,000 in that yellow column is the budget. Again, the rate study had us at expenditures should have been at 1,000,005. So we are again $500,000 higher than what the rate study had for expenditures. Revenue wise, this is where, oh, I'm showing sanitation. This is where I show you the little graph. That little graph in the lower left-hand corner, that's tonnages by month for the last 5 years. Each color is a different year. There is no rhyme or reason about who uses the dump and when. It's just random. It's all over the place. And that's what our rate study kind of opened our eyes to, that we just have to be prepared and have rates in such a way that we can compensate for these things. But these large spikes that happen, especially in 2024, it looks like, those are things that we just have to make sure our rates are well prepared to cover. But as you can see, they said that we're supposed to bring in 2,053,000 in their rate study. I'm not seeing that in our current, but we do have fund balance, current unrestricted fund balance of $4.2 million. So we can make the $382,000 shortfall here up with unrestricted fund balance. We might need to be more aggressive in our rate increases, or we push our capital projects back to closer to 2047 and not do it right now. Vehicle replacement, again, this is where we're finding vehicles are not lasting the 10 years, the 15 years that we had before. We've reduced the compactor down to 7 years. And even then, we've put a transmission into one after 5. So these things get constant 6 days a week wear and tear. It's caustic out there, things eat up. These pieces of equipment that go through the landfill, they definitely see their life in 7 years. So I wouldn't suggest a vehicle replacement change here, but this is causing some of the rate increases. The $2.4 million that's the total expenditures. A lot of that is the increase in the vehicle replacement. And then personnel costs. I mean, we're continuing to see, I mean, it's hard to find qualified operators for this piece of equipment. These are very expensive pieces of equipment that you don't want to let anybody drive, and trying to get accuracy on compacting it, doing it correctly, that all adds money if you can get the right people in the right job. So with that being said, I think this one we have $4.2 million. We're only $382,000 use of fund balance. But again, things for 2028, 2029, 2030, we might need to be more aggressive on our rate increases out there, meaning that we could push a lot of the cost off to not Safford. We could push it off to non-City of Safford. The out of town, I think for the most part, the fact that we've made it $63, we've stopped the out of towns for the most part. I don't see any more people coming from the valley doing that calculation and moving trash all the way here. We do see stuff out of Cochise County consistently and Greenlee still, but they're willing to pay the $63. So we are increasing that along with every other rate is going up $1 per ton.
How about construction material?
What?
How about with construction material? You know, all the building going on?
So we do see that through the landfill. They do have accounts and they are paying. So that is added into our tonnages. Any comments on construction material?
Are they paying enough?
They pay the $53 a ton if they're not in the city of Safford, if they're not us. So yeah, they're paying $53 a ton. So that's where, if you feel like there's that kind of stuff going on, then $53 maybe needs to be $55 or $60.
Try on your slide.
Yeah, I don't increase our 25. Just keep that one at 25 forever.
On your slide, Mr. Bingham?
Yeah.
On 2024, you show a transfer out of 99,000. The next year is nothing, and then it comes back in at 178. What is the 178 transfer out?
Where am I looking? Oh, transfers out. Okay, so transfers out this year includes the vehicle replacement. That's where that transfer out is going up.
So that's not going into that 857,000? Because you're showing internal services 857,000, and then
Yeah.
you've got another 100.
Yeah, going from 74,000 to budgeted 857,000. It should be coming, again, vehicle replacement was actually a motor pool fee up in the operating. So if anything, you're seeing the 467 coming down from the 1,120,000. A lot of that is the money coming down to the transfer out. I can give you specifics on the budget for that, but yeah, you should, operation and maintenance should be coming down equal to whatever we're putting in transfers out. But yeah, that transfer out increase is really fleet. That's both replacement and fleet, where the internal service fund should be the fleet maintenance, but the vehicle replacement is the transfer out. So I can give you more specifics on that, but yeah, we can look at those.
I thought
The
the
weird
trans-
thing I'm looking is the 74,000 back in 2025.
Yeah.
That was a really low number.
I thought the transfer out was transferring from landfill to the general fund. Internal services included all of your fleet
The
and
the indirect
all the,
charges. Yeah.
yes.
But it also
I
should
think that-
be, maybe you're right, maybe the 857 is, sorry, I can go look into that. I did move in motor pool fees, which were O&M out of, so maybe it was internal service funds that it's grouped up into.
Pretty sure that's
And then that
where-
is the actual transfer out. So that is the
Yeah.
indirect cost that we charge the landfill for being the admin portion of the landfill. So thank you for clarifying that. Just needed a second finance director. Capital, for the most part, we, like I said, we're only $106,000 there. We can put that off. Any suggestions here? Do we feel good about this one? We're not, I mean, you have $4.2 million set aside. Again, some of that has to be post-closure increases in the future. Post-closure will only get more and more expensive until you get to 2047. So some of that fund balance will get used for that automatically. But yeah, I think $382,000 of that this year is not that bad of a ask. And again, you still have the restricted fund balance that you have on the books. That 50% of fund balance plus debt service, which, by the way, our landfill compactor gets paid off in December. That we had a 10-year loan on, finally pay it off in December. Okay. Any more questions on landfill? I feel like we don't need to solve anything there, just it's happening. Water rate study. So water is your biggest accounts, 88,000, 9,000 accounts. This is Thatcher, the county, and the city. So we bring in, as you can see, expenses are $6.7 million in costs, and we bring in about $7 million. The reason we bring in more than what we spend on a yearly basis is we set aside that for future capital CIP cost, future capital projects. So not having that excess fund balance every year really kills your CIP in the future. But as you can see, our 5-year CIP is funded, but a lot of the way we got to that funding was we switched to debt. So instead of having cash on hand to pay for some of those projects, we were talking about issuing a lot of debt in 2028 and having the next 30 years of customers help pay for those improvements. So that's how we balance this. You'll see the capital expenses in the rate study, they only showed $500,000. We're spending well more than $500,000 right now in the capital expenses. And then the debt service is increasing in 2028 if we do borrow what we project to be $9 million. But again, until we actually get these designs completed, we won't know the real cost. Right now, we're estimating $9 million. That could be 10, 12, $13 million. You do have debt related to Sanchez Road. That project is going for about 7 to 8 years now. We will finally issue debt, hopefully in 2027, to start that project. It's tied in with our Lebanon grant project, but Sanchez Road is 1/3 of our major pipe that feeds us from Bonita Creek. It's that 1930s pipe that we're finally getting to 1/3 of it. There's still 2/3 that are in the ground, and that's what those future projects would be taking care of, is some of that 1930s pipe over the next 5 years. So any concerns here? We intended to spend down fund balance, as you can see, in the neighborhood of $4.3 million plus 2.9. So the rate study contemplated using large amounts of fund balance. So instead of cash funding CIP, switch to debt, use that cash in the short term to keep the rates low. Sorry, Vice Mayor.
But the Lebanon project, that's mainly granted, isn't it?
It's 100% grant until we get the real cost. At some point, the grant might not be sufficient to cover 100% of it. But right now, we have 100% grant funded in our program.
But the Sanchez is not.
Sanchez is a loan of $13.1 million, and we believe the project's going to come in much higher than that. We're going to have to get an additional loan, but we won't know that until we finish up design for Sanchez, which is what we're still working on. Big project.
Yes.
Things they did back in the 1930s. Ingenious people, ingenious.
Well, and we've talked about having funds to make sure we had some on hand for water exploration, being able to move on purchases of areas that showed promise in water.
So that is new to this budget this year. We did add $200,000, $250,000 for water exploration, and that was not contemplated in the rate study. So we weren't hearing about all those water woes back when we put together this rate study. Those water woes have definitely come on in the last 6 to 8 months. And so that is in the operational budget, and that is causing ongoing expenses that were not contemplated in the rates.
Yeah, because we need to be prepared to move on such things.
Correct. I mean, you are seeing reductions, but again, I don't want to scare anybody into water. We have enough water to meet our needs right now. We are
Yes.
sending out letters in this month's utility bill, asking people to conserve this summer, not knowing what the Gila River Indian community is going to do. They have top water rights on the Gila River, so, and they're south of Chandler, but they have the most water rights on the river that we use. So they were here first. So those are the things that are looming. So we need to have other plans. So water exploration is one of them. And when we get to wastewater, there's some things we've added there. So with that in mind, let's look at what the budget is. So the revenues we believe are $7.6 million. I looked at prior year revenues, trying to figure out how my deputy put those together. I think this is where the rate study really opened our eyes. We weren't collecting $11.6 million ever, but that was what was in the budget. Our rate study showed us that 7.6 is really what we collect. And if you take out the capital, so the $23 million of capital, which 13 million of it's borrowed funds, with that out of that $32 million, you're really spending about $6 million. So you're still in the neighborhood, but because some of that capital has to be funded with this ongoing revenues, you're $5 million in the hole. But that sounds bad. Like I said, it was contemplated in the rate study that you were going to use $7.2 million. So we're below what the rate study thought we were going to use for the first year. So $5 million is a large number that we're taking out of unrestricted fund balance, but that was the plan, to keep those rates low and do those increases in the out years and look to debt to try to solve our capital problems. So again, we started late on this rate increase, that we only got it through November. So we wouldn't want to start this in the middle of the summer. Your biggest months are May and June. And we have yet to see what our new rate tiering that we've implemented in November, what effect that's going to have on customers. They could conserve. So when customers conserve, we get less money. But if they don't conserve, they could be seeing higher than expected water bills, because that tiering really starts to strike at about 16,000 gallons. If you're using more than 16,000 gallons a month, which if people look at their last year's summer, they probably were, their water bill is going to see a bigger increase than they probably were already seeing right now. It's when you get into those higher tiering, which promotes conservation, right? As we charge more, people try to conserve the water, the precious resource that we have, but it's all wait to see what's going to happen in May and June. So right now, we don't have May's until about mid-June, I'll have that, and then about mid-July, I'll know what June's numbers are looking like. But those new tiers are in effect, so that's my summer water usage with the new tiering will be interesting. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's hard to know if customers are going to change their habits or they're just going to take the higher bill. So with that in mind, there is something that isn't in the rate study, the $300,000. They do have some of the largest fund balance water, so I'm able to invest their funds. So I think I could bring in $300,000 there, so that would definitely help us. I didn't add that to the top, so that $5 million is really $4.7 million. And you do have $9.2 million worth of unrestricted fund balance. So using $5 million is using half of that in the first year. But again, this was all planned. As long as we continue with rate increases every year, this will all work out in the next 5 years. So I'm not really concerned on this fund unless the debt and the cost of these projects be ballooned to some amount that we are unplanned for. And we don't know. We haven't got to we have 30% design on some of them, but we don't have 60 or 90% design on some of them. And that's when you really find out real costs. And that's our goal this year, is to spend some of that fund balance to figure out real costs for some of these projects. And we might have to push them down the road that we can't afford them in 2029 or 2028. They might need to be in 2031. So we'll try to self-control our CIP as we see what it comes out, but this fund is healthy, but it could get difficult if we don't continue to raise the rates. So keep in mind, we haven't changed the water rates since 2018. 2025 was the first time since 2018 that we changed the water rates. This study calls for rate increases every year, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029. So it all has to go together in order to fund this whole entire project. So just things to think about. We're only talking about 2027 right now, but rate increases are kind of planned in this rate study. And if we don't do them, that puts us in a world of hurt with some of these funds.
With the neighbors going to widen one of their roads,
First Avenue?
yes, is that, or we have some cost in there? We got some infrastructure to upgrade and redo there also, like we did on 8th Street?
That's our 1930s. A lot of the pipe is under the houses, if I understand right. So if there's water leaks, we could be underneath their foundation. So our goal is to move that pipe out into the street. So we're getting closer on design for that one. I think the design came in cheaper than we expected. Yeah, so we're gonna be awarding that contract as soon as possible to try to get it better, but we're trying to get ahead of that project so we can put the water line in before they build the road.
Yeah, like.
So that's forcing our hand that we want to get that water line in before they put a new road in.
But did we account monies for that?
Yes, we have design and then construction would start in 2028. So hopefully, I think they're definitely a year out at Thatcher. They're still waiting for they're at least a year out. So we're right on the cusp. We can't really push that project any further, but we need to get that pipe out from underneath people's houses because there's nothing worse than a water main break under someone's house. We could be owning a house. But that was a 1930s mistake that back in the day, they didn't really think about that before they placed their house. So nowadays, we don't allow that, but it happened. All right. Any deep, dark questions about water? Any concerns there? So again, thank you, Vice Mayor, for reminding me. We did water exploration isn't one of the things that was not in the rate study, but we are pushing to fund that every year from here on out. And it's looking for any sort of water south of the Bright Line. When we say south of the Bright Line, it's a line about where Discovery Boulevard is, south. We need to be south of that in order to stay out of the GRIC agreement. So the Globe, whatever, equity decree. All right. Deep dark questions? Water? Sounds like we're good. Wastewater. So this is the first time we're projecting a rate increase for wastewater. The first year, we left it alone, but customers oftentimes complain that they pay more for sewer than they pay for water. And you have to understand our water system. Our water system is fed by gravity, and we don't even spend electricity like most water systems to pump it up out of the ground. Bonita Creek feeds 60% of our water, which is most of the year, by gravity, and it feeds our tanks, and the gravity feeds your house. So we have like the perfectly planned water system from 1930s. When they came up with the idea to tap Bonita Creek, they figured out a perfect water system. And so we're trying to keep that water system alive in 2030, but 100 years later, but it was the perfect water system where costs are very minimal. We don't need to filter it. It does get sand filtered. I don't want to get that rumor out there. It doesn't have to go through any treatment. It's just fed from the mountains of Bonita Creek to our tank and fed to everyone's houses. It's an amazing process. But on the sewer side, we don't get as lucky, right? Our sewer, for years and years and years, we had ponds. We let it evaporate off like our neighboring localities. We, in 2002, built a water treatment plant to treat that water and to sell effluent in an effort to try to offset some of the weight. But there is a cost running a water treatment plant. And after 23 years, that water treatment plant is seeing wear and tear, that things are going to start to break more often than not. And these are all specially built to that plant. There is no other unique plant that's just like that. I can't go down to the wastewater treatment factory and buy another part. Everything's specialty built. So everything becomes very, very expensive when I start to fix that. It does have capacity to grow, but we don't have the current need to see that capacity grow. So with that in mind, rates, again, they do have a little bit of a fund balance, so I do invest their funds. They have $2.8 million for the rate study they were going to bring in and spend about 2.7. So that gave them excess fund balance of $77,000 to fund any future capital. I don't think they really understood. We tried to make it clear during our discussions with them that we were seeing the wastewater treatment plant deteriorate and start to meet its useful life. But as they can see, their CIP, we didn't have it in our CIP to replace a lot of that stuff. Now the CIP that we've developed in the last year with Morgan does have a lot more emphasis on trying to replace stuff before it breaks and becomes an emergency. So let's look at wastewater. So wastewater, again, they think we're going to bring in $3.3 million. I do think that if we added the golf course effluent, that's that $530 is the manager adjustment. I think we could bring in $3.9 million, and we would spend $5.1 million is the total, but that's a loss of $1.2 million. And again, in the rate study, we projected a loss of about that. If you add up the 545 plus the 866, our expected loss for that fund was supposed to be $1.4 million. We're at $1.2 million. As I was looking over this with my customer service supervisor, there's one of the things that I think we missed here on this wastewater, because I couldn't figure out why we're not seeing, as you can see, the lower left-hand corner is what we're seeing coming in. So I'm bringing in 2.9 so far, and it says I'm supposed to be at 3.3 million. So I'm almost $1 million off in wastewater. So it's not customers aren't reacting the same way the model was meant to be. So we're already coming in short. One of the things I think we we have a maximum for residential. Commercial doesn't have a maximum, but residential has a maximum of $87. If you noticed in the rate study we passed in October, the rate did not actually put a maximum. So I think there's about 107 customers that really take advantage of that maximum $87 rate. Their bill should be somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 residentially. They use that much water that their residential bill, their water bill is probably about $250. Their wastewater bill is only $87 because we put a maximum on it. But we didn't actually advertise that maximum during the rate study. So this is the question I'm coming to you with tonight is it our intent to have a maximum on wastewater of $87 where some people, they use enough water through the system that their bill should be closer to $300, but we have an arbitrary maximum of $87. This affects 107 people, but right now they're paying $87. Should they be paying closer to $300 or not? This is one of the things I just discovered in the last 4 hours today. So this is one of those things that we could fix quickly. It brings in about $200,000 if we're lucky, if I just take off the maximum and say, per the rate study, we weren't supposed to have this. I'm supposed to be bringing in $200,000 more than I am. Councilmember, go ahead. I don't want to drone on.
Maximum was thrown in there because a whole lot of that water goes on the lawn and not into the sewer.
And for 3,850 customers, the maximum is fine. It's just these 107 customers that really use the water system. They're taking advantage of the $87 maximum. Their water bill is about $250, and typically, like I said, you get customers that constantly say this, my wastewater bill is bigger than my water bill. If your water bill is $25, we would expect your wastewater to be about $35. So same sort of thing. If you're $200 water, we would expect your wastewater bill to be $300, but because we put a cap on it, it's $87.
They have to come in and apply to get that $87, don't they?
It's a setting that we set up in the system and we didn't remove it when we went through the rate
Okay.
study. And I was looking back, I don't think the rate study people really contemplated the fact that we had that maximum. So it's one of those things that we're missing right now.
So McGoy is correct. A customer can come in and say, I'm using my water to water the grass, and customer service does check to see if that's,
So for commercial, we have the deduct meters. So commercially, they can get a deduct meter and we can take that out of them.
Mhm.
But residentially, we don't allow a deduct meter. It's
I know,
only
but-
commercially.
but we give them a discounted rate.
I think, yes, you're right. We could do a metered sewer of some sort.
Well, we just give them a discounted rate. That's what we do. They say, and they call it, I can't remember what they call it, but I want to say it might even be like $53. They even get more of a discount if they come in and say they're using the water for their lawn. And then I think, so some of those customers, and I don't know if they're included in that 107, you'd have to go.
There's
back
a
and ask
winter
your staff, but-
irrigation. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something where they have to come in and they can apply and say that they are irrigating their lawns, and we do give them a break for that.
But really,
So
I
maybe
mean,
that's where we want
the
the cap to
customers that are
be for
taking
those
advantage of it
customers.
are those ones during the winter that are using about 25 to 35,000 gallons. So their average is 35,000 gallons. If you do the math, their bill should be much higher than $87. But it's 107 customers that are able to do that. But you're right, there is a winter irrigation. We could encourage that more often if you can prove the fact that you're watering heavily, because it's really the months of November, December, and January to go into the calculation
Mhm.
of your full month sewer bill. For residential. Commercial, you get billed based on what you use every month. Residential, we look at your November, December, January bill, and that's how your calculation comes out. So if you're really watering a winter garden, your sewer bill is going to be reflective of that all year long for the next year. And that's what people can't understand. Is sometimes I think sometimes our winter visitors, they're not here in the summer, so their water bill is that minimum $25, and then all of a sudden they come for the winter, start using their water, and that makes their summer or their sewer bill starting in July of the next year to be much larger. So sometimes you'll see, yes, they have a $25 water bill and an $80 wastewater bill. So sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's just how we charge things. But so my question is that maximum was not advertised. That's a mistake by staff and myself that we didn't catch that. I don't think our rate study contemplated that, but these customers would definitely see a major increase. Do I want to fix that? Do I want to change it from $87? There's nothing in policy that I can find that establishes this $87.
I hate to throw it clear out, but I think
I'm
maybe
ahead
we
of-
need to look at it.
Am I missing something? Was there something in policy that established a
There
maximum?
there was something, a rate that was established and approved by council at some point that there was going to be a max. That was,
Like I
that
said,
was common. I
started
mean,
4
that
hours
was,
ago, so.
yeah, so that is something that we've done, is had that max amount.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what the amount was. Like I said, I think there was a max amount, but then there was also like a discounted amount. There was your regular 36, there was a discounted amount for if you could prove that you were watering in the winter and that's why your bill seemed high, and then there was that max amount.
So we'll go look for that.
There are some
So
tiers that
maybe
you
I need to do a
need to-
resolution to change some prior resolutions, but I think it's something that we need to explore because the rate study for the next 5 years did not contemplate a maximum. So,
Does this take into account, we're gonna sit here and send letters out to people to please quit using so much water. But then if
they stopped
they're-
using water.
but if they're watering winter ryegrass all winter and we're giving them a discount to keep their lawn green while we're begging everybody else to quit keeping their lawn green, I think there's a disconnect there.
So
I
maybe
don't-
this
I don't
is
know how
something we do in
fix it.
2027 is look better at these regulations and try to fix this. This could be a to-do list for
Oh.
2027.
I think so.
I honestly would like to look at the sewer rates then altogether, because we don't have an adopted effluent water rate.
And
And
so
we really need a
and
adopted
I
rate,
was
so.
adding in this year's, even though we only have 2 customers, one of them's on contract, so it wouldn't even be affected by a published rate. The other is us.
Right.
So I was, for the very first time, putting it in the rate changes that we established that $2.50 per 1,000 gallons.
And I would like us to consider in that we give City of Safford to ourselves a discounted rate at like 50% of that.
Okay. I mean, as you can see, this fund is stressed, and we could take that a little bit, but we can't take a lot of it. And there's the idea that we have talked about the irrigation system will be one day funded by the sewer fund if we do it. If the debt is issued, the sewer fund will be the one issuing that debt, and they will be the one building the irrigation at the golf course. So that debt, that fee that we're drawing from the golf course would eventually go to cover that debt. So this is just a one-time helping this fund, but eventually when you issue that debt, that could push this fund further into the hole if there's no offsetting revenues.
Mhm.
So these are all deep, dark questions. Are we doing the irrigation system? That was one of the things we talked about at the last meeting, is the irrigation really happening in 2028? Or is that something we should kick to 2031? But yeah, this fund is how that gets paid for. WIFA would be our source of the debt, and WIFA is only going to issue it based on an effluent project that saves water. So we have to show how we can save water, which we believe is very easy, given the way that we currently do the watering.
Was there ever a number put together on how much water we would save if we went to
That was the hope this year, was to do the study and finally get those numbers together, because that's all going to be in our WIPA application, is how much water we really could save. At one time, I thought we were like 100 million gallons lost to evaporation and seepage.
that's significant?
That is it's a lot. But again, we don't read the meters on a constant basis. I think establishing a rate of $2.50 on effluent finally puts the onus on my department to read that meter every month, start to understand trends, and start to understand where we're going with effluent. So that's why I'm still encouraging us to establish that rate so that we can start to understand our wastewater, our effluent water usage at the golf course.
Have you done any research on, or do you have any examples of what others are charging for effluent water?
No, we do not know. I
Just
know
curious.
this. I know
don't
there's other
either. I'm
places
just
that have it,
curious
yeah.
what that
But we can
looks
find out
like.
what I think our closest, I think Tucson uses effluent.
Oh, I don't know, but
I know Mesa does.
I do know that that 250 comes from that contract that we have, which was sort of designed to help pay that debt service. So there was really no comparison or anything to say this is why we're going to charge the
Wonder if we
county
found
that
out it was
amount.
350.
So,
I can go- I
and
can
I
go
don't
look at
know.
rate
It
comparison.
might be more than 250. I really don't know, but I
That
think
would be more than what we're charging for water. So I don't know if it would make any sense if you go any
right.
higher.
So yeah,
So-
I think it's definitely something, if we're going to adopt a rate, we should be looking at and considering what is the right rate. And obviously there's a contract with the county that's already existing
Locked in for the
and
life
locked
of debt.
in, right? So I feel like we could establish a different rate for.
So in an effort to try to respond to your comment, can we pass the tentative budget with the effluent in there, and then possibly an amendment during a June meeting that we could take it out if you wanted to, but I'm gonna pass the highest budget possible with the idea of collecting it. And then if we want to take it out, we could do that through various votes through the month of June and do the final budget less. The tentative, you always set higher and you cut down to get to the final.
Yeah, and I think that's a great plan. I think we should, start high and then work through that process. But I wouldn't want us to start charging the golf course until we've got an adopted rate and have that set and
Right.
approved by.
And in the meantime, I can try to find out what not our neighbors, but other effluent systems have.
Okay.
But you said that, that 500,000, the city is paying for that influent.
That's
water.
sales tax dollars going into your sewer fund. If you don't charge it, what's happening is your sewer customers are taking on the responsibility of feeding water to the golf course.
So that's why I'm hesitant to reduce it right away until we know the effect it's going to have on us. Can we afford that?
And again, if you turn it into, if that 530,000 goes to $500,000 of debt service, you're really only collecting 30,000 bucks. So this is a one-time money surplus, but if we ever do that project, this will be the way that that project is funded. And I believe the debt at $5.2 million, I believe it came out to $500,000. So again, this 530 might be a one-time thing and then it won't be there anymore. So you'd have to figure out how to balance this budget going forward. You'd have to do further rate increases on your customers if you didn't have the $530,000 in there.
So that's why I'm hesitant to reduce it down to 250 or half, I think is what Alma said.
But I think it deserves a vote. I think, can I pass the tentative and then we propose some amendments to the tentative as we get to the final? So that we can at least have a vote on what it should and shouldn't be? And I can give you all the variants. We talked about Fry Mesa being excluded from it. I can give you what all those numbers would look like. And you decide. But right now, like I said, the rate study projected $1.4 million of a loss. We're only at $1.2 million. So I could take about a $200,000 cut to this. But again, it's a one-time surplus that I'm trying to take advantage of until I issue debt. But if we kick the irrigation system to 2031, I have more time. But again, I think the golf course is really hoping for an irrigation system. I don't know if they're here today.
I would rather see our fire department get their building before I'd like to see an irrigation at the golf course. And I think a lot of people would too. And I think it's sad that we spend more time talking about an irrigation system than our failing fire department. We need to be thinking about that. My son-in-law comes home and reeks of the fire, and they all die from the cancer. But we're worried about an irrigation system. We've got our priorities wrong. We do.
Okay, because you are right. We did, with our changes we did last week, we did fund the design of the fire station, but the ability to build that fire station with the sales tax dollars we have is not there. That's why I proposed the property tax increase over the next 3 years, but we didn't move forward on that. So our moving to construction is still stymied. We have no plan. We can get through design, and after that, we're kind of, it's nothing, but I think $530,000 goes to wastewater to help pay for that debt service. So you're right, it's what's our priorities. So like, that's why I think we should have a vote sometime in June. We'll put this amendment out, but let me propose the tentative as if it's in there. And then if we want to cut it back, we can cut it back. Okay? Any other questions? Like I said, I think we're still following the rate study here. We're learning a lot. We might need to do another rate study after we figure out. I didn't really get an answer on the maximum. Do you want us to work on that in 2027? Come back with a better plan of what that would look like? Propose something and let you guys actually see what those numbers would look like before we do anything? That might help us $200,000 here right away. So, okay, gas. So keep in mind with gas, they have commodities. We don't generate gas here in the ground. We don't mine for it. We don't drill for it. So we have to buy it from El Paso Gas. So we have a commodity charge. We buy it at a low wholesale price and we sell it to our customers at a higher price. And in between that is how we pay for our gas division to operate. And at the same time, we pay for gas CIP projects. All of that gets paid for by that difference between what we charge for gas and what we actually pay for gas. And then there's a base fee that we try to put in there. Just even if you don't use gas very much, there's still a base fee for your house to make sure that we still have enough to make sure we're not laying off employees every other year whenever the market changes. Because this was a very warm winter, if you didn't notice, and so our gas usage is very low for this year. So you're going to have those years sometimes where you have a warm winter, and so that's our biggest months is the winter. and a warm winter doesn't lead to a good gas fund balance. But as the rate study shows you here, we bring in about 2.7 million. We spend about $3.1 million. So they anticipate an operating loss of $410,000. How they cover that is through fund balance that was already just at about $500,000. So this fund was struggling. We made changes to the commodities because right during the announcement of the Iran war, prices went through the roof. So we already had for the 2018 rate study, staff was given the ability to make changes every April and October to the rate based on the commodity costs. So commodity costs were well above what the rate study had projected in October a few months earlier. So we made those changes immediately to customers. So customers are already seeing rate increases as of April this year. And this rate study did not even contemplate those in its 5 years. So again, we've got the commodity side. We're looking at that every 6 months with Raymond and trying to figure out what we should be charging so that we're at least covering the cost of what we're buying and making some money off it at the same time. We also, the stabilization fund was put in arrears. We stopped collecting with the new rate study in October, but the account didn't have enough money in it to cover anything substantial. So we have increased the stabilization fee as of April 2. So a lot of things have already changed with this account. So the funding may look bad on this rate study, but we've kind of fixed a lot of it getting up to this point right now. But going forward, some of the biggest market, I think the second biggest market increases were in our gas department, and that was not contemplated as part of the rate study. So your gas department and the market is definitely causing a rift between what we're collecting and what we're spending. Gas purchases, again, we've had that fixed through the commodity. Capital expenses were about mirroring what the rate study had, but we did add a few things that we felt we needed over the next 5 years that the rate study didn't have in it. I think the thing that hurts us most is we had a minimal fund balance here that we didn't really contemplate for the next 5 years. So we need to build that up to the best of our ability because gas is so volatile. So with that in mind, we have $3.8 million or $2.7 million is what they say we can collect. Keep in mind that Raymond was able to get a grant that actually replaces all of his meters. So $1,079,000 he gets from a third party. So that was not in the rate study. The idea that that was getting paid for by a grant. So that helps us. That's a $1,079,000 one-time money that we can add into that. So we believe our revenues for this year are $3.8 million. He's spending about $5.3 million with 1.5 of that being capital. So he's 1.4 in the hole. The fund balance usage per the rate study was $903,000. So he's about $500,000 over what the rate study would have. I do have investment revenues because gas does have some sort of fund balance that stays steady. So I'm able to invest their revenue or invest their fund balance and I get about $70,000. But unrestricted fund balance is $3,045,000. So I can take this one-time hit of $1.4 million and still balance this budget for at least 1 or 2 more years. Again, rate increases are called for in the next 5 years in this rate in order to keep this one steady. But again, we've taken a big hit in year 1. Any concerns about this one? Again, gas, the biggest time is in the summer or in the winter. And when we have a warm winter, it wasn't a great winter to build up fund balance.
You said you adjusted the rate March and October?
April and
April.
October. And we'll adjust again in October depending on, I think we have some hedging that we're looking at with Raymond to try to stabilize our rates over the next few years. So we're looking at all of our options there, but commodity and costs have gone through the roof if you haven't heard. I mean, it's not just fuel for your vehicle, it's natural gas. So
And that rate adjustment is,
it went to 476, which I think they only had us at like 3 something. So it was a pretty big increase, but it's through the summer when you don't really use that much gas. So a big increase on a very little quantity is still very little money. But come next winter, they could feel the effects of that $4.76 increase that we did.
because it stays.
It stays. And if in October, we'll reevaluate what we're buying it for and what we're selling it for to make sure that we're still making a profit on it. So it could even increase in October. And we are bringing guidelines back, I believe, in the next few months that will codify a lot of this stuff I'm talking about, this ability for staff to change commodity rates for gas and electric. That'll be codified in these new guidelines that our attorney's looking into. So you will get all this stuff. It was codified in a 2018 resolution with the previous rate study. We just want to make sure it's in a more centralized place that customers can review it and see it without researching and doing deep dives into our archives. So any questions about this one? I believe it's a one-time hit for this year. Hopefully, again, rate increases over the next 5 years will keep this account stable. I don't think we're doing anything excessive here. I think Raymond has come up with a 5-year CIP plan. He does have some pipe from 1936 in the ground. So he does have some old stuff that he's got to get out of the ground too. So hopefully his hasn't rusted, but that's why we have rectifiers, right? So any concerns here? I believe we can bring you a balanced budget at least for 1 or 2 more or 3 years if we're lucky on this one. Electric. So one of the abilities we had in the rate study was tried to offset some of those increases. We talked about every fund having an increase. Is electric had a huge fund balance. We were cash funding the idea of a substation in the near future. I think at one time when I got here, it was like probably supposed to happen this year. So we've been pushing off the idea of this substation further and further out. I think the only thing we have in our 5-year CIP is the design of it in 2031, but the funding and the construction of that facility could be in 2032. And that as we went through the rate study, we talked about that being debt funded. Don't put it on the customers that are currently in the system. We would put it on the future customers for the next 20 years to pay for that. But that cost of that facility is pretty substantial. And the fund balance that they had was pretty substantial. We were pretty close to collecting a large portion of it. But what we used that fund balance for was to offset rate increases in other funds. So you'll notice that we're actually reducing everybody's electric bill, supposedly normal usage, $7 a month, every month times 12 months a year. So everybody's getting a massive decrease in their electric bill to offset all those other increases. So this really benefits City of Safford customers because that's who our electric customers are for the most part. We do have a little bit in the county, but Thatcher customers don't take advantage of that. They get charged more for their water. But power bills are able to offset Safford customers so that we're able to kind of show that your overall utility bill isn't going up. I would suggest that we maybe need to look at that harder in 2027 and possibly not carry through with those constant decreases over the next 5 years or 3 years. Councilmember Goy?
Are the county employees, the county customers getting that same break on their electricity?
Yes.
Is there a way to
Have a county rate and a
have a-
non-county rate?
Yeah, because I mean, when we go to annex them, we got no leverage. We got no.
That is true.
You
You have the water. They do get charged a 25% premium for water, but
They should.
I don't want to say you have a lot of customers. I think you have like less than 400 in the county. It's
But
very
if-
small.
But if to annex them, they get a better rate on their trash, a better rate on their electric, and a better rate on their gas.
So as we, maybe in 2027, homework that we do is we work on the idea of not doing these decreases like we've been talking about in the rate study. So undoing some of that advertisement and actually come up with a plan that puts this money to better use. One of the biggest changes I think that Mike has done is what the rate study, we had a CIP plan of about $2 million. So I sat down with Mike over the last 2 weeks trying to figure out, he put a CIP together of $4.6 million. We were able to look at that and see if there's things that he just couldn't get to. But for the most part, he is using third-party consultants to advise him on the substation. The work would all be outsourced, not through our own electric team, but through third parties to do the work. I think the biggest killer here is getting the parts. The lead times in electric are huge. So if we don't have it in the warehouse or this third party isn't able to acquire the stuff, you may budget for it, but you won't actually spend it. But you have to have it budgeted in order to at least encumber it and get the contractor moving forward on it, but we might not actually spend $4.6 million. I think when I sat down with him, we were able to cut about $200,000 off that of things that his team cannot get to. There's just too much work that his team he has too much stuff on his plate. So we were able to cut a little bit of it back. But I think for the most part, $4.4 million of it, he can at least get encumbered if it's not actually spent. So encumbred's good because you're not actually spending the cash, but you're committed to spend it when it actually gets done. It might get done in 2028. But Mike has definitely put together a thorough plan to keep our system current, keep us up and running, have redundancy wherever necessary. So as being one of the smallest electric companies in the state of Arizona, it's hard to know all the stuff that SRP and APS and even larger customers know. Tucson Electric, I mean, they have massive accounting teams that figure this stuff out. So we're really dependent upon basic knowledge. Mike is very knowledgeable. I'm very not knowledgeable, so Mike brings me up to speed on this, but we believe we're gonna collect $11.5 million and spend about $15.2 million. That's a $4 million loss. The rate study did call for unrestricted fund balance of only $500,000. So that is well above that, but you do have a fund balance of $12.2 million of unrestricted fund balance. And I am able to invest whatever we do have in his fund balance and earn about $400,000 in interest. So with that in mind, I believe I got the first year funded, maybe the second year, but this is where we need to start looking at electric and saying, maybe I can't be as generous to give away electric decreases that are pretty abnormal for the state. Every other utility in the state is going up except for us. But that was contemplated as an effort to offset some of our other bills. So I do believe this, we can still have a balanced budget here by using unrestricted fund balance. It is a third of that unrestricted fund balance. Again, it might just be encumbering it, so we're not actually spending it, but we need to start moving forward and getting this stuff ordered because it will take time. So with that, I'm really tired of talking. Any questions, concerns? Solar is one of those things that we need to get back to. I think the mayor has asked us to come back on a work session. Solar, some of the ways we were able to decrease that monthly bill is due to our solar changes. So we'll come back and re-explain solar to you and how we think we've created a little bit of equity with solar there. But yeah, the decision on solar to only get 25%, we are still getting calls from people that are concerned that want us to go back to the 100%. Keep in mind the big electric companies that I'm not like and don't have the knowledge, they're at 12%. So I still think we're doing the right thing, but I can explain it to you better. I can explain where we take losses so that maybe the customers can better understand why solar actually costs the city a little bit of money, and giving back 100% in credits was making us a losing business. So I will bring that back as soon as I'm able to get through this budget, Mayor.
What was the plan on that solar that we did? Were they supposed to get paid out by now?
No, it's June 30th. So the next 20 days, I am getting my staff fully on board with the idea of me cutting a check before the 28th day of this month. There's about 150 customers that'll probably get a check. The checks will range anywhere from $100 to $8,000. It's about $170,000. This reduction in credits, this 25%, has definitely reduced the amount we thought we were gonna have to pay out. So it is having some effect. It is taking away some of those credits. But yeah, we're ready for it. It'll finally clear it off the books. Auditors dislike this idea of carrying credits every year. So I finally can get that off the books. We don't have these outstanding liabilities that we've unaccounted for. So we might have a better understanding of electricity come June 30th. So we have a lot of plans, a lot of desires.
Right,
Hopefully
sorry,
enough staff
what
to
was
get
that
through.
number again of your estimated amount of
I think
number
we
of
estimated
customers?
275. I think we're at 170 when I ran the numbers today.
170 out
we're
of about 400.
There's 440 solar customers, but
So a
ones
little
that
less
actually
than
have
half.
credits are about a third of them.
Okay.
Some of our solar customers never earn any credits. Some of our solar customers completely break even. And then there's some solar customers that generate so much that they have a credit. I just hope that come July, they know they need to pay their bill. Because this might be the first time that some of these customers have paid their bill in years. But if we give you all your credits, there's nothing to pay your July bill. So that's the message that we have to get out is pay your July bill because there's a check in the mail. You'll get it at the beginning of July to pay it at the end of July. But you might have to pay your bill for the very first time. Any concerns here? Workshop this in 2027 to try to come up with a better rate structure that isn't showing the amount of decreases. And then we'll come back with a solar educational campaign to help people understand that solar is not free.
I kind of suggested that we do a different rate for county outside the city.
We can
Workshop
that.
I don't know that it's worth it. If I did my math right, of course I used my head, but $35,000 might not be worth doing
Juice it.
all the math
Ain't worth the squeeze.
to get. that
But you're right, when it comes to
$35,000.
annexation, these are the things that kind of help people want to annex into our city. And these people are right on the edge of your city. They are future annexation people. But we can workshop that. We'll bring you back those numbers. That could be part of that workshopping. When I point to,
I just don't
Yeah.
want to spend more than we're going to get out of it to figure it out.
well, we can look at it. I think it's valid. If we do it for water, why not do it for electric? So, all right. I think that's the end of my slides. Again, I guess show you that average bill. We believe it's only going to be a change of $1, but that's offsetting it with $7.81 of electricity. Again, I'm proposing the staggered approach to this. Again, I think a great time for sanitation and wastewater. Wastewater, again, goes into effect. It's based on your winter average, but it goes into effect July. So if I don't get it in July, if I do it later, by then it's already calculated for July. So I don't know if I can do that one in October. I'll have to look at that. Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That I would just do a change mid-year on that, but that's not how usually it's your bill for the whole entire year. So if we did a rate change, that effect wouldn't take effect until next July. So again, these are things that we can have votes on and we can talk about changing the dates. I, as staff, propose these. I think October is a great time, a lull for electric, water, and gas. But for sanitation and wastewater, I think it's a great time to take advantage of those in July. Also, landfill would be in July, since these funds are struggling, and getting that money changed or those rates changed as soon as possible is what we would want to do. We can talk about a 60-day, that would be beneficial to the customer to keep them informed, because right now we're basing all of our idea, we proposed this back in October for 5 years. That's why I'm not re-advertising for 60 days. So I am kind of skirting that. I think I have the regulations that cover me, but if we wanted to be open and transparent to our customer, a 60-day wait might be beneficial, just to let them know it's coming. Because there was a lot of questions when we did change the rates in November of why is my rate changing? Shouldn't it change in December? So I need to be very clear. I am bringing back an item, I believe, in mid-June to lock in rate increases. So that would be a great time to talk about that and amend that to whatever dates we're talking about. I think it's the 22nd. So with that in mind, again, I think things I didn't tell you that I used to balance some of the, it's not all just rate increases that we try to balance the budget with. We cut some stuff. So in AMI, I proposed the idea of hiring 2 new positions, one of them a lead. I'm still keeping the lead idea for one of my existing 3 positions, but the 2 additional leads, we're looking at a third party to actually come in and do it. When we started looking at their math, they can do it cheaper than me hiring people. Once I pay someone a pension and trying to get them educated and trained, I think a third party that can come in, still not doing it all at once. We're not going to do the whole city like we did 13 years ago. We're going to do 1/10 of the city, but I'm currently developing a contract with our with our attorney that will allow us to have a 5-year service agreement with someone to come in and do that work all at once for 3 weeks during the year, and then come back every year and do it every 3 weeks. 3 weeks every year for 5 years. And I think that'll still be cheaper than buying a vehicle, paying a pension, or staff members that constantly have constant turnover. So with that in mind, I also, we did keep the AMI lead position. We kept the capital project administrator. A lot of the CIP costs, or the operating costs that are for some of these funds, is based on their CIP levels. So that capital, that's still in there. The reclass the engineer associate, that's still in the budget. The reclassing electrical truck service lead is still in the budget. Things that I removed, we took out the holiday bonus on the general fund. It would also affect the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds is only $40,000. So we took that out across the board. So that did reduce some of the expenses in the funds. Again, I removed my AMI text. That's about $197,000 of the capital project. I believe we can get it done for under $197,000 from a third party. Again, we're going to put out a 5-year contract and find out. Was able to remove the truck that we would have to buy for those 2 extra people. So that saved us $75,000. Those AMI funds are directly charged to the utilities that have meters. So by doing that, that basically reduces water, electric, gas, and not sewer, but water, electric, and gas. It definitely reduces their internal service fund costs. And then I haven't shifted anything in CIP, but we did look at, like I said, electric. I already moved his $200,000 of stuff that he doesn't think he could get done in 2027, but it's only $200,000 of a $4.6 million CIP.
In the slides, I didn't see the irrigation system in there either for the golf course. Did you remove that?
So since I still have the $530,000 in this year, I still have that as a 2028 project. So no, I have not done anything. That is
Didn't
a
see that in
possi-
there.
And that's a general fund amendment, because that's more of a park. Well, it is a wastewater project. So
Yeah,
I
that's
see,
where I
that's
was
the problem,
looking
is we
for
call it
it.
as a golf course project, but really it's a wastewater project. So maybe classifying that correctly.
Oh,
so that we can have that
yeah,
vote.
if that's where you're going to fund it, I would say you need to
I will
put it in
classify
there.
that correctly. Any other suggestions? So not only, we asked for, it's like a 3-legged stool, right? You can't just stand, if one of those legs isn't the same length, it all falls apart. So not only did we raise rates, but we reduced expenses, and we looked at other efficiencies to try to keep this all balanced. So we looked at everything we could to try to keep us balanced. We are using a lot of fund balance this next year. There's a lot of rate pressure in the future. So, but I think we can mitigate that over time by coming up with better ideas to try to save us some monies in these utilities. With that said, I turn the time back over to you. I don't think I could talk.
At the last meeting, I did say that I would like to see it somehow, see if we can fund the holiday bonuses.
Okay, so we'll bring back an amendment. So if we're gonna bring it back, are we bringing it back with the revenue, or we're just taking a further loss? It all depends on how we make that motion. Is there some idea you want me to explore to try to fund that? Is there something that I should do as an offset for that?
In the general fund, I would even be okay considering maybe, I think we had the council donation program at 105,000, and
You
it
could fund
was
it.
15,000 per council member is kind of what I had proposed. You know, can we reduce that to 10,000? That would be 70,000 going to nonprofits still, and then allowing for about a 30,000
So you're right,
savings
$92,000.
there. Um,
It doesn't help me on the
That's
enterprise
not-
sides, but I mean, it's not very much. I mean, we're already taking losses, so a $40,000 loss on an $11 million electric fund is not major. It sounds a lot, sounds worse than it sounds. But yeah, so you want me to bring it back like that?
That's
So
something I'm
holiday bonus is
I-
back on the table if
others
we
can
can
chime
cut
in
the
if they'd
city
like.
council donation program. Any other ideas? These,
I mean, that's just me, one person. I would
but
like for
these
anyone
are
else to
ideas-
chime in.
so I'm gonna bring back the tentative on the 8th. And so the 8th will set that maximum. But then when we talk about the tentative, start thinking about, do we want to have more meetings to start whittling it down, or just the 2 meetings in June? So it'll be the 22nd, and then there'll be a July meeting, and then that'll be the final budget that we have to get passed at that point. So if we don't have any extra meetings, there'll just be 2 meetings. We would propose all the amendments we want and be done with it. But we have a lot going on in those meetings outside of just the budget. So would it be extra? Well, I think you guys are getting wore out by the Mondays, so I don't want to keep proposing more extra Mondays.
Well,
This
we've
is the
already
more, I
come
think
this
this is the
far.
most in-depth in my 3 years that we've ever gone into the budget. I think I've given you every nook and cranny that I could about this budget. A lot of assumptions that we used to make as staff, I'm bringing forward and showing you how we got there and telling you that sometimes we didn't do it right. So,
Well, I appreciate all the effort you put into it. I know I've had to be here more often. Some of them were optional, but I was still here because I needed to know more about the budget, I guess, than others. So I'm here, and I appreciate all the efforts you've tried to jump through hoops some nights. And I just wanted to tell you that, Troy.
so if you're thinking about a no for the budget, what kind of amendments can we make to get you to a yes? What kind of ideas can we put out there to get to a yes? So I'm hoping for a 7-0 approval of the budget with everyone agreeing that this is the future. But if I can't get that, then I won't. But, all right. Any other ideas to start? You don't need to know tonight. Come
I
on, back
still-
on the 8th.
I kind of still don't really understand what you meant by, well, I know you said the 60-day notice and stuff, but you wanted to give the notice out in a different time of the year or initiate any increases in a different time of the year? I didn't really pick up on what you
Well,
meant there.
And he's proposing to change rates in July, which would go into effect as soon as we approve the budget. They would pretty much go into effect. And I'm saying I would like to give our customers at least a 60-day notice. And we may not be required because he's already noticed for the rates when we approved the rate study back in October of 2025. But in my opinion, to be transparent, I would like for us to give the customers 60-day notice. And I would like for all of them to increase at the same time. I don't like the idea of staggering them. I think it gets confusing. It maybe even appears as if we're trying to hide something. I don't know. I would like to see us notice it and start them all at the same time. I think if we can wait till October or even November, because that makes it at least a year that we've, already had the first rate increase. So we're kind of maybe have a little bit of a loss from those first few months, but I would not
Let
be
me
in
look at the
favor of
dollar
increasing
amount.
July 1st.
So let me look
That's
at
my
a dollar
opinion.
amount. Let me put a dollar amount of what that would affect those 2 funds and see if we can contemplate that. Right? Maybe on the tentative, I want to set it high as possible. What you're asking for is to reduce it. You're reducing revenues. You're not really reducing
Yes.
expenses.
Yeah, well, it
So-
shouldn't affect your.
I guess, yeah. So I guess we could. I have to look at that. I think about it. It's too late tonight. It's 8 o'clock.
I'm going to forward an email that I got from a customer that comes to the meetings quite often, so that Mr. Bejarano can talk to you guys about it and stuff. But one of the questions he's asking that I don't really know, but I've got your attention, is could we get a meter customer charge for electric, gas, and water separate on our utility bills? This may be changing soon. I think we need to know what we are paying for.
So create a separate charge for just the meter replacement program so they know exactly what they're paying, because that's going to be an ongoing cost forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, that, I didn't understand the question, but I,
Can we bring that up in current events? Because it's probably
Okay,
not good for this,
alright.
but for current events, you could propose that as a future agenda item.
well, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Bejarano
you'll
to
send
talk
it
to
to
you
me.
about it.
But it is a good utility rate, so you are proposing a new rate. We can contemplate that.
I would also like us to, so you removed the 2 additional AMI techs.
Yeah,
You're saying you're looking at doing it through a contract.
correct.
So do you have that contract, or you have an amount that you're thinking you're going to add to a contract? I guess,
So
would it
we
be
have
in?
$1 million a year budget in AMI-ish to pay for meter replacement.
Mhm.
We've looked at what the cost of the meters are, and we've looked at the idea of a contractor, and we believe we can still live within that $1 million.
Within, so that you
Correct,
already
it-
have
but I
existing
need to put it
there.
out for bid because this is
So-
a major project. They're gonna be doing
Right.
5 years worth of work. I mean, it's almost probably a $5 million project. So I have to put it out for bid for 14 days and see what numbers they come back. They've asked us a lot of questions about the state of our meters, and I think we're
Mhm.
driving up our costs as we're being more and more transparent with them. So I don't know what the official answer is until I do that IFB. What's it
So-
gonna really cost me?
I guess my question would be, is there any, and I'm just throwing this out there, is there any chance that we could look to the specific utility departments to do some meter replacing? Now, I know gas is kind of doing their own already because they have the grants, but with water and electric, is there capacity within their departments that we could look through and see, even if it's not happening every 10 years, if they did every 15 years, and that, I think if I calculated it correctly, is around 20 to 25 meters a month that they would have to go and replace. Is that feasible? Is that something we can look at? And
We'll
having,
look at it and get back to you for the budget, or does this need to be a budget, or just a 2027 work
and
item?
maybe a 2027 workout. I mean, and I would
But I
like
guess
you to
before
keep
we
it in
award
mind
this
before you,
contract.
exactly,
Yeah.
before you move forward with maybe a
And again, this
contract that
contract's
could
big
be a
enough.
5 million contract. Is there some capacity that we have within the departments? I know, water always struggled because they were not fully staffed, and they are fully staffed now. Is there some capacity? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there
We
because
can look
that
at it.
would be some savings in the long run if we can use some of that capacity. I don't know.
We'll look at it. Good suggestions. Anything else?
Because changing out a gas meter, if you do it and everything's right, is at least a half hour meter. And
Raymond?
that's, because, I mean, when you gotta go relight the water heaters and all that stuff also, sometimes you run into trouble with that, so it can take a little longer than a half hour to change out a gas meter.
For these water meters, they're talking 5 minutes to replace them. But for an electric meter, I'm getting a little pensive from a liability standpoint, but some of the infrastructure that people have on their homes isn't really up to date. So when we replace a meter, we could be causing more problems than we want. But we have to replace the meter, right? At some point, it's inaccurate. So these are things that other utilities have taken on, and so this will be our diving into the idea of maybe fixing people's electrical boxes as we replace their meter. So these are things that we haven't contemplated for 13 years, and we're bringing it back in the next 5. So
Yeah, because you turn it off, you can't turn it back on if they're not up to grade.
if we
So
start your
that's-
house on fire, that's not a great idea.
22. Yeah, so
So
that's tricky.
we're learning a lot, so we're getting there. So, but yeah, let me look into that idea. Any other suggestions? Things you really want to get out there? We've talked general fund, we've talked enterprise fund. Again, tentative budgets next week. That's the time to come out with these things. I'm going to ask you to give me defined ideas that we'll come back and vote on in the month of June. And how many times do you want to meet? How is it going to take multiple weeks? Is it going to take 1 week? Is it going to take
Week at a time.
a week at a time? So, but that's what you have a week to think about. So,
I know tentative is, you're shooting high again, and a lot of it's wish list. It doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
well, we are changing CIP. So we're hoping that we get to CIP more often. That's where we spend 2, 3, 4, 5% of our budget. If we can get our CIP flowing, spending 25, 50% would be a major change, and it would put a lot of money back into the community. As we spend money on our infrastructure, we put it back into the community we take it from. So that's, I think, will be a benefit to even our sales tax rates by doing more projects for the city. So we have it. We've been sitting on it. We just need to spend it now. And I think we have a plan. Do we have the people is the question. All right.
Very good.
I got to sit down. Thanks.
Then we'll go ahead and move on to item number 4, announcement of current events. Anybody?
Was I supposed to say something here at this one, or did I already wear it out? Oh, yeah, but I'm gonna send
You're
that
gonna
off
send it.
to-
We're fine, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Any current events? We'll move on, request for agenda items. We'll move on to the next item.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.